9, 8.
You're watching The Experience, Comic Culture and Sales. Streaming live daily to Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter.
2, 1.
So I was just thinking, I don't know if I told you guys the lung story. JD, did I tell you guys the lung story the other day? I might have.
I don't believe so, but I have a terrible memory.
Okay. So a couple years ago, I had pneumonia. I went into the emergency room, and a man came in to do an x-ray of my lungs to see how I was doing. And he took the x-ray and he waddled off with his cart. And then about 20 minutes later, he came back. I'm like, well, why are you back? How bad was it? He goes, it turns out your lungs are longer than expected. I said, excuse me? He goes, I didn't get all of the bottom of your lungs in the image. I said, oh, okay. So I leaned forward. He put the plate behind me again, pushed it down a little further, took the pictures and waddled off. Never thought about it. Didn't think about it again the rest of the time I was in the hospital. Got home. And then a couple weeks after I was in the hospital, the doctor sent me a note going, can you go back to the hospital, have x-rays done again just to make sure everything's cleared up? And I thought, sure, no problem. So I drove down to the hospital, and I went in and I walked into the x-ray room, and I told the guy, I said, just so you know, I've been told by one of your own technicians that my lungs are longer than expected. He goes, oh, okay, no problem. I went, okay, good. And he got set up, took the pictures. Okay, he said, I'll be back in a couple minutes, then you can go. And he heads out of the room. In a few minutes, he comes back in, looking a little forlorn. And I'm like, what's wrong? He goes, your lungs are longer than expected. And I said, yeah, I told you that. He goes, I know you told me that. But they were longer than I expected. I need to shoot them again. And I thought, wow, that's odd, but okay. So do them again. So we did them again. And that was, like I said, a couple of years ago. I didn't think about it. I haven't had any bad reactions for having large lungs or long lungs, but I'm 6'5", so you would expect me to have long lungs. And most of my height is my torso. My legs aren't that long. So I don't think about it again. A couple of weeks back, I've been having issues with my ankle. They sent me in to get it x-rayed. I go in the same hospital. And I get in there, and the guy's working on my leg, setting it all up. And another guy walks in. He goes, how's everything going? He goes, oh, yeah, things are going good. And he looks at me and goes, it's you. Like, what? He goes, taps the guy. He goes, this is the guy. The guy's like, this is the guy? Yeah, the guy with the really long lungs. He goes, the guy you had to shoot twice? I said, yeah. Turns out I'm kind of a legend down in the x-ray room. Stay tuned for the Dan Wickline Show. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Dan Wickline Show. It is May. It's gonna be May. Yep, it's May now. It is May 2nd, and we got an interesting show today. We got a bunch of news, some stuff that just broke, and then we are going to talk about superhero fatigue, whether it's real or not. And while writing up my thoughts for the show, I actually came up with an idea of what I think studios need to do to market in this new world. That'll make sense when I lay it out. And then also, I'm going to end the show not with collectibles, but actually a review of a comic. I don't do a lot of comic reviews. As a writer, I try not to critique other writers' work. So I just kind of, let it go. But in this case, this is a book that I think is well worth critiquing and well worth picking up. But we're going to get to all that. So let's get it. By the way, please hit the like and subscribe button. And remember, we have an exclusive t-shirt in the shop now for fill out the form or whatever it is. So I love the commercial for that. It's Kyle talking about how it's something that we say on every show, except this one, because I don't sell anything. I never ask you guys to fill out any forms. I feel like I should start. I should start selling stuff like, signed copies of the Karma trade, or go through my back issues and start pulling them out going, hey, I've got this. You guys want to buy it? But for now, I don't ask you to fill out any forms. But that is the shirt, and it's limited edition. It's in red. So check out our shop. All right, let's jump into the news. And like I said, we got some interesting news today. Warner Brothers is negotiating to close a 7-figure film rights deal for Evangeline, the Rob Liefeld character that, the one he made, not with Image. It's when he kind of went outside of Image, I think it was. I don't remember if that came under the Image banner or not. But this is one of his Rob Liefeld's signature characters. She's an angel who fights the forces of evil. Now, most of the deals are closed. Margot Robbie is looking to star as the title character, subject to the script, of course. Olivia Wilde will be directing, and it's going to be written by Tony McNamara, who wrote the script for Poor Things, which was an amazing movie. Now, Evangeline is, like I said, an angel who fights the forces of evil, often finds herself face to face with demons and monsters. She was the most feared warrior in Heaven's war host, having single-handedly broken into Pandemonium, the other fortress of hell, to confront the devil himself. She's a fallen angel, banished from heaven by God after being tricked into questioning his love for humans. Evangeline was stripped of all her angelic abilities other than her great strength and her blood, which, once extracted from her body, could be used as a weapon or a miracle when it's empowered by quoting Bible verses. Evangeline uses her powers to fight demons on Earth and is being groomed to be humankind's last hope in the coming Armageddon. So it does have a very religious feel. Does she have feet? Well, occasionally. That's one of the miracles, that she stands up without feet. All right. Chris Hemsworth did an interview. He and Robert Downey Jr. did an interview with Vanity Fair, and we got some good stuff out of that interview. First off, Chris was talking about how he has some regrets about his portrayal of Thor in Taika Waititi's second Thor movie, Love and Thunder. He said, I got caught up. I should do it with an Australian accent. I got caught up in the... No, I'm not going to do that. I got caught up in the improv and the wackiness, and I became a parody of myself. I didn't stick the landing. Now, he also expressed frustration and dissatisfaction with the character that he played across the 8 films from 2011 to 2022, saying, sometimes I feel like the security guard for the team. I would read everyone else's lines and go, oh, they got way cooler stuff. They're having more fun. What's my character doing? It was always about, you've got the wig on, you've got the muscles, you've got the costume. Where's the lightning? He added, yeah, I'm part of this big thing, but I'm probably pretty replaceable. Now, Robert Downey Jr. came out and said, no, he's not. That is probably the hardest role in the MCU, and he plays it very well. Now, Thor: Love and Thunder did a $144 million opening and did $760 worldwide, so it wasn't a failure. But it did fall about $90 million short of Ragnarok. And it dropped considerably in response. It went from a 93 critic score and 87% audience score for Ragnarok down to 63% critic score and 76 for audience. And I will tell you honestly, Love and Thunder is my least favorite Marvel movie. Just saying. By the way, hello, Lorena. Hey, Ed, Kenneth. Good to see you. Triple B. And of course, we got JD on the board. All right, sticking with Hemsworth. He also talked about co-star Jeremy Renner's recovery from the snowplow accident he suffered back at the beginning of 2023. Can you believe it's already been well over a year? The cast from the Avengers, of course, keep in contact through a group text chain. They've been doing it since the original Avengers movie. So, when it happened, Renner actually posted to the text chain. He said, Hemsworth said he sent all of us sort of a doped out hospital beat up image and said, "All good, guys." And then I didn't hear from him for a while, and he was in the thick of it. Now, Renner attended Chris Evans's wedding in Cape Cod in September, which was last year, when they all praised him for his health advancement. Hemsworth said, this was Robert Downey Jr., said, if there's one characteristic we all agree is paramount, it's resilience. To see Renner embody that literally and in the context of what it was basically a Portuguese-American wedding was mind-blowing. Fully recovered and ready to celebrate. So yes, miracles happen. Hemsworth added, this was an astounding sense of gratitude from him about just being alive. So I do love Renner's story and him coming back from the injuries. I mean, I remember reporting that story around the 1st of July or 1st of January in 2023, and just utter shock and concern, and watching the news to see what the next news report was going to be, and to have him not only fully back, but fully back and working, doing Kingstown or Mayor of Kingstown season 3. I'm still hoping he'll return as Hawkeye. So, yeah. Lorena says she got her copy of Dracula in 1944. Nice. Evangeline was originally published through Liefeld's cell phone, Maximum Press. Yeah, that's what I thought. That's what he did after he left Image. And it kind of feels like they're more religious in scope, because I know Rob is a very devout. I don't want to say what religion, because I don't know if it's Catholic or Christian, but he's a very devout man. So it doesn't surprise me that he brought that into his work, at least in Evangeline's case. Okay. He was still at Image, but ideas that Image didn't think fit at the label he put out in Maxim. That makes sense. All right. This is a fun one, sort of. Are you fans of car accidents? When someone says, you've got to try this, it's horrible, and you do, then I got good news for you, because on May 14th is the premiere date on Netflix of Madam Web. That's right, the movie that got a 12% Rotten Tomatoes score and made people remember Morbius fondly. That's going to be ready for you to watch for the first time. How do I know it will be your first time? Because it only made 100 million worldwide. This means 0.125% of the world has seen this film. Unless people went to see it twice, and I'm doubting that, unless you've got an extreme crush on Sydney Sweeney. And since one man was arrested for, what's a family-friendly way of putting it? I don't think there is one. Having personal relations with himself during the movie when Sydney Sweeney was on screen. There are some of them out there, people out there who are. And if you do, if that's you, you're in luck, because now you can watch it at home. Yeah. Why did Sony take Sydney Sweeney and I don't remember who played Dakota Johnson, and dress them down and make a movie. Why cast them? I just... Sony's really bad at this. I don't know how they're still a studio. Are Sony's films being produced by Bialystok and Bloom? Why, yes, that would make more sense. Lorena says, I'd rather watch Love and Thunder again. I will watch Madam Web because I kind of feel like it's my job. Like I have to. And if you guys want to know if it's that bad, I will watch it and I will come tell you guys. If you'd rather skip it, just want to know how bad, I will let you guys know. I will take that shot for you guys because, you know, that's how I feel for you guys. We're in this as a family, right? All right, June 5th, 2026, Amazon Studios and Mattel will be bringing their live-action reboot of Masters of the Universe. Yes, we can all have the power. This is coming from the Bumblebee filmmaker Travis Knight and will be based off of a Chris Butler screenplay, though the initial draft was written by David Callum and Aaron and Adam Nee. The movie follows a 10-year-old Prince Adam who crashes to Earth in a spaceship and was separated from the magical power sword, the only link to his home in Eternia. After tracking it down almost 2 decades later, Prince Adam is whisked back across space to defend his home planet against the evil forces of Skeletor. But to defeat such a powerful alien or villain, Prince Adam must first need to uncover the mysteries of his past and become He-Man, the most powerful man in the universe. Mattel Masters of the Universe, of course, was first introduced to the world in 1982 through a line of action figures. And in 83, we got the He-Man and the Masters of the Universe animated series. Yeah. Lorena, I am 100% with you. Dolph Lundgren needs to make a cameo. I think Dolph Lundgren should play Skeletor at this point. Netta's here and says superhero fatigue is proven wrong by the X-Men 97. It was not superhero fatigue, but it was DCEU. Like I said, we're going to get into that. Canadian, how you doing? Good to see you. I feel kind of bad because I don't know what part of Canada you're from, but if you're Canadian, then you must like hockey. I think that's a country law up there, a citizenship law. And my Kings got knocked out last night by the Oilers. Didn't even get time to get a Kings hat. It's horrible. All right. I hope he finds a green tiger. That would be cool. All right. Now, this is our last bit of news. I hope JD is ready because I actually asked him to find a picture. Paul Walter Hauser it's having kind of quite a week because I know he just had a story about him saying that he's going to play Captain Ed in the upcoming Naked Gun reboot. And I thought, well, that's great. He's playing Captain Ed, right? And that comes out on July 18th of 2025. Wonderful. Turns out he's got a movie coming out on July 25th, 2025, as he has been added to the cast of Marvel Studios' The Fantastic Four. Now, they're not saying what the role is, but of course, he'll be joined Pedro Pascal as Reed Richards, Vanessa Kirby as Sue Storm, Joseph Quinn as Johnny Storm, and Ibn Mas Bacharach as Ben Grimm, and of course, Julia Garner, who is going to be playing Shalabal, a version of the Silver Surfer in this. But Hauser is coming off an Emmy, Critics' Choice, and Golden Globe wins for his turn as serial killer Larry Hall in Apple's crime drama Blackbird, and was also on the second season of The After Party. So he's coming off some high stuff. He's also been cast in the Chris Farley biopic. But the reason I actually wanted a picture of this is I'm looking at him. Up there, he's up there. And all I can think of is, well, I mean, they're talking about we got to cast Galactus, and they're hoping for a Latino actor to play Galactus. And I'm like, that's not a Latino actor. And the beard, I don't think Galactus is supposed to have a beard. Who could he possibly play? And as I looked at that picture, all I could think of is, wouldn't he be a really good Mole Man? I mean, you can see it, can't you? If we could have put those goggles onto the picture of Hauser, you'd see it. Now, I'm not saying they've cast him as Mole Man, but I think he might be Mole Man. Just saying. All right, guys, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, superhero fatigue. Back in a moment.
What do you call the place on Spider-Man's wrists where the webs come out? His website. I hate myself for writing that joke, but you'd make me feel so much better if you just visited our website. We have links to our merch, new release lists, all the show info, and so much more. TheEXPLive.com.
Ask your local comic shop to add Battle Quest comics to your pull list today.
By this time in our journey, we had been on the trail of a very elusive creature for about 96 hours. But all the hard work is about to pay off. Oh, crikey, there she is. Oh, by the markings, I'd say this one's at least a 9.8. Oh, she's a real beauty. A true mint copy. Oh, this one will make a fine slab on anyone's display wall. Oh, she's a feisty one, though. Look out, look out!
Mint Hunter Comics is the place to find that mint comic you've been searching for. Mint Hunter Comics, Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern, part of the experience.
Hey, everybody, welcome back. Remember to stick around later tonight. We've got What's in the Box with Miss Jen, the Geek Chat, and of course on SketchUp tonight is manga artist extraordinaire Ben Dunn. So you want to stick around for all that. Canadian says Ottawa is his team. Now I understand the survivalist part. Senators fan. I know some Ducks fans. I thought they were, long suffering. Actually, I'm not that up on hockey, so the Senators may be a great team right now, but I don't remember hearing much about them. So, all right, let's get into how we're going to. Dunn says he's inspiration for Warrior Nun was Evangeline. Interesting. See, there's JD bringing it all together. All right, so let's get into this. There's an argument over just when the current wave of superhero movies started. Many attribute it to the first time Tobey Maguire put on the blue and red spandex. 2002 Spider-Man as the start of this big push of superhero movies. But others, and I think rightfully so, attribute it for the door being opened for Sam Raimi by Wesley Snipes in Blade in 1998. I think that's when they went, oh my God, we could do comic book movies now. So either way, we've had well over 2.5 decades of some of the best and worst comic movies ever. I mean, for every Avengers Endgame, we've had a Shazam! Fury of the Gods, and for every Iron Man, we've had a Flash. And that's not just saying a Marvel versus DC. I'm saying there have been some great DC movies, like the first Wonder Woman, the first Shazam, the first Aquaman. And there's been bad Marvel movies too, like Love and Thunder. So now there's been a plethora of, and most of anything from Sony, but there's been a plethora of superhero films in the last 25 years. And they have ranged from amazing to mediocre to god-awful and back again. But you can say that about every type of movie ever made. It's not exclusive to comic book adaptations. Now, with the increase of these types of movies, there have been an increase in people claiming that they're ruining the cinema, Martin Scorsese being one of them, and predicting the demise of the superhero film. Now, the term superhero fatigue has been around almost as long as Marvel Studios. People in general love to watch as an underdog rises up to success, but they also like to see that same underdog crumble back down after they reach that success. It's like that friend you had in high school that loved all those obscure bands until one of the bands made it big and suddenly they hated them for being sellouts. We like the climb, but we love the fall more. But is superhero fatigue real? I have strongly spoken out that no, it doesn't exist. That's my feeling on it. First off, superhero isn't a genre, but rather the type of character in a film, in the same way that someone can be a cop or a reporter. You know, calling it a genre is kind of like saying, if you're saying that police films or cop films are a genre, then you've got to look at Training Day, Die Hard, and Police Academy and go, oh yeah, they're the same genre, right? Because they all have cops in them. They're not. Superhero movies are not. Ant-Man is a very different film from Thor. There's a similar theme in the MCU overall. They do fit together, but Captain America: The First Avenger was a war film, while Winter Soldier was a 70s spy thriller. And down the line, that's what makes Marvel work, is when they do these different genres and use superheroes in them. So, JD says that, of course, this all started with 94's smash hit film The Shadow. You might be able to throw in The Phantom with, I can't think of the actor who played the Phantom, or The Rocketeer with Billy Connolly. Not Billy Connolly, Billy Campbell, Jennifer Connelly. Who played the Phantom? Billy Zane. So those were all good too, but none of them really clicked as much, Now, let's get deep into this. I honestly believe that if you make a good movie, people will happily hand over their cash and leave with a smile. You make a bad movie, then they'll go on the internet and tell everybody about how the genre is dying. Ed, really? Howard the Duck, really, Ed? Really? Okay. But let's not just go from my opinion. Joe and Anthony Russo have directed some of the biggest Marvel movies of all time, including Captain America: The Winter Soldier, Captain America: Civil War, Avengers: Infinity War, Avengers: Endgame. Actually, it's hard to think of anything they've done other than those four. And they're all hits. They're all huge moneymakers. So they're kind of the experts on these things. And when speaking to Games Radar about the downward box office we've been dealing with over the last few years, they have a kind of completely different take and believe that it's a Hollywood-wide issue, not just a Marvel or DC one. Joe Russo said, I think it's a reflection of the current state of everything. It's difficult right now. It's an interesting time. I think we're in a transitional period, and people don't know quite yet how they're going to receive stories moving forward, or what kind of stories they're going to want. There's a big generational divide about how you consume media. There's a generation that used to do appointment viewing and going to the theater on a certain date to see something, but that's aging out. Meanwhile, the new generations are, I want it now, I want to process it now, then move on to the next thing, which they process while doing two other things at the same time. You know, it's a very different moment in time where that's a very different moment in time than it's ever been. And so I think everyone, including Marvel, is experiencing the same thing. This is transition. And I think that really is probably what's at play more than anything else. Now, Joe also noted that the new generation of moviegoers communicate largely through memes and headlines with nobody reading past 2 sentences. So everything's 100 characters or less, or 10-second videos on social media you swipe through, he says. He also said, I think that the 2-hour format, the structure that goes into making a movie, it's over a century old now, and everything's always transitioning. So there's something happening again. And that form is repetitive, but it's hard to reinvent that form. And I think this next generation is looking for ways to tell their own stories that service their own sort of collective ADHD. His brother jumped in, Anthony, and he went on to specifically address the term superhero fatigue, saying it has nothing to do with superheroes in particular. It's just fatigue in general. He said the superhero fatigue question was around long before the work we were doing. So it's sort of an eternal complaint, excuse me. Like we always used to cite that back in our early days with superhero work. People used to complain about Westerns in the same way, but they lasted for decades and decades and decades. They were continually reinvented and brought to new heights as they went on. Now, looking into that, Westerns were all the rage during the silent era. But when the sound was added, they faded away because no one thought the Westerns would work with the sounds. Well, somebody brought a Western back, and when they came back huge. And they were pretty much the top of the box office from the 1940s into the 1960s. And then they faded. And then there was a resurgence in the 70s with spaghetti Westerns, with, people like Clint Eastwood getting into these films. Now, today, we still get a Western every few years, but they're fewer and far between. But when they do come out, they do very well. You got Unforgiven, you got Silverado, The Quick and the Dead. So when they actually do these Westerns, they do well, but they're not people don't consume them at the rate that we used to. But it's also probably has to do with something to the fact is that in the 60s and 70s, we weren't that far removed from the days of having to ride a horse and all that, where now we're 100 years, 120 years past that era. There's a great movie called Sunset, I think it's called. Sunset or Sundown. And it has Bruce Willis as Tom Mix and James Garner as Wyatt Earp. And they team up together to do a mystery. And it's set in the 1940s film era. And it works because both of those guys were alive at that point. So, I mean, just the concept that Wyatt Earp was still alive in the 30s and 40s. It's pretty amazing. Now, is that the fate of superhero movie? Make less and fans will like them more. Possibly. Young Gun 3 maybe in the works? Wow. It's been a long time since a Young Guns movie. I think that Joe Russo hit the nail on the head in that the way we view movies have changed drastically in just the last 4 years. We'll start with the biggest example against the idea of superhero fatigue, and that would be Guardians of the Galaxy. In 2017, the second volume was released, and it made $863 million worldwide, $389 million domestically. Then, of course, Gunn had his issues with getting fired because of 10-year-old tweets. He went over and did stuff for DC. He got rehired. He came back. And then it was announced he was going to take over DC totally. And Volume 3 opened. That opened in 2023, and it made $845 million with $358 million domestically. Now, there is a dip between Volumes 2 and Volume 3, but it's not drastic, and it can be traced. But the thing to note is that Volume 2 opened for $146 million, while Volume 3 opened for $118 million, almost $30 million less domestically for the opening weekend, and that carried through the final domestic total. The bottom line is about $30 million worth of audience didn't bother to see the film. That means the rest did. So 10% of the audience is gone. Now, are these people who previously saw multiple showings on opening weekend, or are they people that just decided they'll wait until Disney Plus? There are a few factors at play here. Some are unique to the genre, while others pertain to all movies. Ed says, that's crazy. I never really thought about that. I guess in my mind, those cowboy characters were a couple hundred years ago. Wyatt Earp did in the 1940s. You dropped my jaw on that one, Dan. Yeah. It wasn't that long ago. So the 70s, watching those movies wasn't that far past. But now we are farther away from the 70s than the 70s were from the 30s. Yeah. So the first factor that I think is the pandemic. By closing theaters for COVID, people were forced to find other forms of entertainment. Streaming services picked up, a lot of subscribers, and good number of films were released directly to subscription service, such as the first Dune movie, The Suicide Squad, Black Widow. Now, some people found out that they enjoy watching movies for the first time on their TV as much as they do in the theater. It's not a big difference to them. They have these giant TVs at home. They can sit there in their living room and make their own popcorn and not spend the $30-$40 it's going to take for two people to go to a theater, and enjoy it at home on their time and be able to pause it to go to the bathroom. And if they're Sydney Sweeney fans, they won't get arrested. So there is this now group of people who probably will never return to the theater and drink beer, and beer that doesn't cost $12 a can. Now, some people found out that, not everyone, but enough people have done this that it's made a dent in the box office. And when it's an untested film like Blue Beetle, or something that is getting negative press like The Marvels or The Flash, audiences are just not bothering to spend the time and money to go see the movie. You wait 90 days or so and see it on the streaming service you've already paid for, Madam Web. Okay. How many people here actually saw Madam Web? But when it shows up on Netflix, a service that you're already paying for, there's a good chance that you're going to click on it. The Marvels became one of the most watched films on Disney Plus. Eternals is one of the most watched movies on Disney Plus, because people are not seeing them in the theater because of the negativity and stuff, or whatever the reason is, the pandemic. At home, they're watching them, and a lot of them are liking it. And you see, once it gets home, those audience numbers on Rotten Tomatoes start going up because people are now liking the movie. They let the negativity about a film keep them from whether or not they're going to go watch in the theater, but they're more willing to try it at home. And once they try for themselves, they tend to go, well, I don't agree with what that guy said after all, and that's good. Ed says, yep, I'm one. I doubt I'll ever go to the theater again. Too comfy and convenient at home. Yeah. Here's a question for you guys. Go ahead and answer this in the chat. If they offered you the ability to, say, spend the same price as a movie ticket, but get it at home for a one-time viewing on opening weekend, would you do that? Or would that not be an incentive? If you could see the Fantastic Four in the theater or at home at the same time, would you pay for it to see it at home? That's where it's changing, Now, that's one of the things I think they did well with Black Widow is you paid extra when Black Widow came out. HBO didn't do that, or Max didn't do that. So Suicide Squad, Dune, Wonder Woman 1984 just ran. So they didn't make any extra money. Black Widow did. Now, I would have been upset if I would have paid for Wonder Woman 1984. But Suicide Squad and Dune, I liked quite a bit. So, all right. So you wait 90 days streaming service and you already paid for it. You can see the effect of this just about every weekend when there isn't a big blockbuster. The numbers look horrible at the box office. Like the smallest puppies fighting for the scraps. We get a handful of films a year like Barbie or Dune 2 or Guardians that bring in close to $1 billion, but just about everything else is just struggling to survive. Mr. Towers, who I'm not familiar with, hello and welcome to the show, says at home definitely. Triple B says depends on the movie for me. I still love the theater experience. True, I do like watching Marvel movies and big action movies on the big screen. I saw Ant-Man Quantumania at the theater and was happy I did because that was such a big spectacle. And I know a lot of people have negativity towards it, but I liked it. So, okay, another factor at play is this cottage industry that I've talked about quite a few times. I know I've ranted about it, but that's built up around superhero films. New rock stars, screen crush, heavy spoilers, and more. They've built up these large fan bases or followings on their videos breaking down Marvel and DC films, and among other films they do as well. But Marvel and DC are their main suppliers, and the tone of these videos have been shifting because they notice that if they get negative, more people click, and if you come out and say, Spider-Man, good movie, people are going to go, okay. But if you come out, why Spider-Man's the worst movie ever made, you're going to go, well, why the hell was it the worst movie ever made? So it's like headline writing for tabloids and stuff. Now, they don't do one, and they don't do one video per movie. They do like a half dozen or more because their business model depends on people clicking, and they need content. And they're only putting out, right around the pandemic's return from the pandemic, there were all those Marvel shows on the air, and there were movies, and everybody was just dropping things in theater. And these guys were in their heyday. But since then, it's slowed down. Marvel's not putting out as much. DC has slowed down completely after last year's torrent of bad stuff. So it's just not giving them the material. So they're making stuff up, or they're responding to scoopers. That's a whole nother comic industry. Cottage industry has grown up. These scoopers that come out with stories, and it's like there's no consequences for it. So if they come out and say this person was added to this movie and it doesn't happen, they don't have to come out and go, I was wrong. They come out and going, oh, they ended up deciding to go a different direction. Because the studios aren't really coming out and saying what is happening, and they're being quiet. It's keeping things, allowing the scoopers and these websites to control the narrative. And again, negative gets more clicks. A headline like Marvel fire entire writing staff on a new movie because of poor test screening, that's going to get a lot of people's attention. But the odds are that people who see the headline click on it long enough to see what movie it is. and then they leave. And at no point does anybody clarify that Marvel doesn't do test screenings. It's not they don't do it. It's not their habit. So if you ever see a story that says test screenings are saying this about, they don't do test screenings. So the whole story is made up, but people click on it and they get that. And then later on, you ask those people if they're going to go see a movie, and they say, no, they heard it's horrible. But when you go, well, what did you hear about it, or where did you hear it? They don't know, but they just heard it was horrible. A third factor is that it's kind of unique to these adaptations, is that there's a certain bit of ownership feeling to the fan base. They feel that they've put all these years and read all these comics and stuff, that they want to hear, they want to see what they want to see. And when they hear it's doing something different, they shout out in rage to anybody who will listen. Now, this happens to Marvel and DC, but it's also properties like Lord of the Rings, The Last of Us, video game thing, anything. Any tweaks or changes become an assault on their childhood. And I do get that feeling, as there are some characters that I grew up with that I feel very connected to, and I want them to be the way I grew up with them. But I also remember something Todd McFarlane said when I saw him at a convention in the 90s. They were asking him about the upcoming Spawn movie and the Spawn animated series and the comics, and how if you read the comics and you watched the animated series, they were different. They didn't cover the same story in the same way, and the movie was going to be even more different. And they're like, well, why would you do that? And Todd very clearly came back and said, why would you want to see the same story over and over again? That the comics were his take on his characters. The animated series was that group's take on the characters, and the movie was the director and writer's take on the characters. It was a chance to see all these different versions. Now, Marvel had 60 years to work their universe. DC over 80s, but we can't expect them to do the same stories with the same connections over a handful of movies. It'd be impossible. Lorena says she liked the She-Hulk show. So did I. Ed says, I know we brought this up dozens of times, but that always reminds me of the She-Hulk episode that was labeled horrible 20 hours before it aired. Exactly. Yeah. JD says, to be fair, the Bay Transformer movies were in fact an assault on my childhood. Yeah, I don't watch them because I don't like them, but I don't rail against them because that doesn't matter. Are people tired of superhero movies? No, I don't think they are. Look at the success of the Batman. After all the other Batman films and series we had, I was like, why do we need another Batman movie? And it turns out that's probably my favorite one so far. But there are more hoops to jump through to get the audience to come see the movie. You have to create a good movie. You have to get by all of the scoopers and content creators now. You have to help the audience set realistic expectations, and you have to convince them that it's worth their time and money to go to the theater. It was a lot easier in 2002 and 2008. This is a different audience with more distractions, less attention span, and less money to just blow on bad films. Studios need to start controlling the narrative of their films. They need to hire social media teams to knock down fake stories and release a continuous stream of teasers and information to build up the film until it's ready for release. They have to be better controlled when they're coming. They have to be better controlled when they're coming out, and stop delaying things only to have toy lines and Happy Meals give away spoilers. There should be social media accounts showing behind-the-scene clips, quick comments from cast, and costume reveals on a regular basis. So when Crazy Scooper 959 announces that Actor X is getting kicked off of a movie, no one cares because they know Actor X is still working and having fun on the set because we see him. It's not a matter of superhero fatigue, it's theater fatigue. And the only way any studio is going to beat it is to learn to communicate with the newer audience in the same way that the detractors are communicating. It's not the way our parents and grandparents did it. It's not the way that we would do it. but it's the way the new generation of moviegoers communicate. And if the studios don't figure it out, they're going to lose this generation and never get it back. Let's take a quick break and we'll come back and I'll give you a comic review. Be right back.
Twitch, it's not just what happens when you have too many energy drinks anymore. Check out our content over there too.
So, the show is called The Geek Chat. And really, there's just a couple of geeks.
I'm Rich.
I'm Dez.
And we are your hosts for this weekly guide into comic bookery and all the geeky stuff that goes with it.
And that pretty much says it all. They talk about the latest movies and shows.
Okay, I'll be completely honest with you. Overall, D+ movie.
So the end. Did you know who that is?
That's She-Ra, yeah.
Yes.
The new #1 comics of the week.
We rep Samuel Jackson and we rep Mace Windu.
I passed on this. I was like...
No regrets.
No regrets. I really wanted to like this book. I really did. Like, I really did.
And just chat with each other. And with you.
Oh, Daniel says, I dosed off with the first one. I have zero interest in the Joker Harley ship, not Harley herself. Enjoy, not for me. Yeah, this movie's going to be rough for me to sit through, I'll be honest.
The Geek Chat, Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern. Just a couple of honest geeks.
Let's be honest. Come on.
And that is why people watch us, because we're honest.
Giving their honest opinions.
And the thing you always have to remember about the internet is everyone has an opinion, and they all suck.
Part of the experience. There's something for every imagination at your local comic shop. Visit comicshoplocator.com to find a store near you.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dan Wickline Show here on The Experience. Remember to stick around for What's in the Box, the Geek Chat, and SketchUp with Ben Dunn. Thank you, Triple B. Dan, he says that this has been a great show today. I appreciate that. I put a lot of effort into putting all that together. So this is one of the shows I'm really happy with. Today we're going to talk about a comic that came out just yesterday. Now, there aren't a lot of comics that I get excited for right now because it seems like the stories are very transitional. You know, this week they're going to go this direction, and the next week they're going to change it back when it comes to, oh, Spider-Man's dead. Oh, no, he's not. Yes, Jim and I should be back on Sunday. Jim had to do inventory Sunday night. That's why we didn't do a show this last week. But Dynamite has put out a new Space Ghost comic, Space Ghost #1, written by David Pepose and drawn by Jonathan Lau. This is a cover by Francesco Mattina, and it's awesome. I got to tell you. Now, there's two groups of people. There are the people that grew up on Space Ghost when they were in the 60s and 70s, and they saw the animated series, character designed by the great Alex Toth. They watched him as a superhero fighting space criminals with Jace and Jan and Bleep. And then there's the people that got to know Space Ghost from the 90s when he was the host of a late night talk show. Very different. This goes back to the original design of the character And this is one of the strongest first issues I have seen in a very long time. Jonathan Lau's art is really good. It reminds me of, do you know who Shane Davis is? He was the artist on Superman, Earth 1. He did some of the Strange Adventures comics for DC. Really good artist. It has that feel to it. David is writing the hell out of the show, or out of the book. Absolutely loved it. It's got a few other great covers. Do we have the other covers, JD? This is a Jay Lee cover. That's absolutely gorgeous. Then we also have Bjorn Barons has been killing it for Dynamite lately. I love this cover. And there's a great covers for 2 and 3 are also really good. And then finally, if you want more of a classic look, Michael Cho is doing that classic style. So new bounty coming in for Dan Jarin. Yeah, actually, I'm gonna have to do that call back. But yeah, Space Ghost, I read it and absolutely loved it. It establishes the character pretty well without giving away too much, but the dialogue kind of fills in a lot of the gaps without it feeling like you're being forced fed stuff. Are the kids of the monkey in the new one? Yes, they are. They are a major part right away. You see them before you see Space Ghost. It literally starts with Jan and Jace and Blip. So if you liked the old 70s cartoon, I think David has really nailed it. 60s and 70s cartoon. I would jump on it if I were you. I think it's well worth getting. So that's going to be it for today, guys. Let's wrap it up. Remember to stick around for our other shows. I will be back on Tuesday with the news and Thursday with whatever comes to mind. And of course, Sunday we'll be doing Pop Go the Writers with Jim Beard. Not sure what we're doing there yet either, but again, we'll come up with something. So have a great night and a great weekend, and I will see you all soon. Good night.